Hi everyone, it's Oleksandr Zaluhovskyi again, back with the latest video in our CDR Import video playlist. Today I'm going to answer all of the most common questions we hear about the PortaOne xDR Mediator utility. If you missed any of the previous videos in this series, you can find the links in the description for this video. Meanwhile, let's get started. For which services can I import xDRs into PortaSwitch? You can import CDRs, also called xDRs, for a wide variety of services, such as voice calls, mobile or broadband data transfer, messaging, IPTV, pay-per-view, and virtually any other service, whether that is hours of on-site consulting where the customer is charged based on the measured amount of consumed service, or even something like electric scooter rides charged by the kilometer. Can I import CDRs into tab 3 format? The short answer to this question is yes. However, it's important to keep in mind that even though tab 3 is a standard, there are still several different versions of it. For that reason, the transformation rules will most likely differ from telco to telco. PortaBilling, meanwhile, has a built-in set of demo modules for tab 3 file transformation and processing, for voice calls and data transfer services. So those modules should be customized or adjusted either by you or by us to match your exact requirements. What other formats are supported by the xDR Mediator? CDRs or xDRs can be imported to PortaBilling from text file, in other words a CSV file, text and width text files, binary ACN1 files generated by Huawei, XML files generated by the C-Change system, which serves Smart TV product subscribers, and finally tab 3 files, versions 3.11 and 3.12. However, of all of these, the most popular and easy to use format is obviously the text file option. Is it possible to automate the CDR upload for further processing by the xDR Mediator utility? Yes, it's possible. PortaSwitch has a built-in FTP SFTP server, where an external system, for example a telephony gateway producing CDR files, can submit CDR source files for processing. The source file transmission can be done in one of the following ways. The xDR Mediator utility operates as an FTP SFTP client. It connects to the external system and downloads CDR source files through FTP SFTP. Or the network equipment of your vendor, such as for example BroadBand, generates and uploads CDR files to your FTP SFTP server. In this case, the file transmission flow is reversed. The administrator enables the FTP SFTP server, which is disabled by default on the PortaSwitch side, and creates a username password pair that allows access to it, for example from your BroadBand equipment. Compared to other configurations, for example using SCP or Secure Copy utility, we recommend FTP SFTP file transfer, both inbound or outbound. That is because this will increase the security of your system as the user does not have access to anything outside the FTP SFTP server. It also simplifies xDR Mediator support through system updates. I already have an xDR Mediator. Will it work with the PortaOne Dual Version solution? The answer again is yes. To use the xDR Mediator with Dual Version PortaSwitch, all you need is a Radius proxy instance deployed on the target system. You can find out more about Radius proxy component using the link you find in the description of this video. And the xDR Mediator switched or redeployed from the source system to the target system. If the raw CDRs are placed directly on the file system, this last step will also involve changing the path or IP address for your CDR upload script. On the other hand, if the CDRs are uploaded through FTP SFTP, then only the access from the target system to that FTP SFTP server should be reconfigured. Considering that the import of the CDRs in general is tied to offline billing, switching the upload path or reconfiguration the FTP SFTP server will only cause a small one-time delay in the processing of CDRs by the billing engine. Can I import CDRs with charged amounts? Yes, you can. Even though more often than not you will calculate and apply charges to your PortaBilling customers, it's still possible that some vendors might send you CDRs that already contain charged amounts. When this happens, PortaBilling grants you additional flexibility in handling this type of CDR. You can treat the price provided as final and import it as is, or you can apply an additional surcharge on top of it according to the relevant tariff rate. Can I merge several CDRs into a single record? Yes, you can. Sometimes a vendor may provide several CDRs that apply to the same session. For example, if a call passes several gateways before being delivered to the callee and each gateway creates its own CDR. Or you may wish to aggregate multiple records for the same service, for example, charges for DID usage from some third party, into a single record and subtract a single charge from a customer's balance. So, to help differentiate CDRs that apply to the same session from others, CDRs from the same session will have the same identification parameter, the so-called aggregation key. Using this key, PortaBilling identifies CDRs from the same session and merges them into a single record. What if I need to split a CDR coming from the MNO into two xDRs representing incoming and outgoing calls? Is this possible? Yes. This is a legitimate and possible scenario. Similar to merging CDRs into a single CDR, it is also quite simple to program the xDR Mediator utility to split a single CDR into different CDRs. Can I import CDRs in chronological order? Yes, you can. And import CDRs in chronological order requires the use of one extraction instance and one rating instance. For example, if your source file has CDRs for only two usernames, for example number A and number B, all you need is to set two parallel processes. The rating instance then simultaneously imports the CDRs for both users. What will happen if there is a charging error while importing a CDR? Will it cause the creation of failed xDRs in the PortaSwitch database? No. You do not have to worry about that. The default behavior for xDR Mediator utility is to save an xDR only when there are no rating errors. This is done in order to prevent the creation of failed xDRs when an issue occurs during the charge calculation, and to allow the administrator to detect the rejected CDRs on the PortaSwitch web interface and rerun the rating process. However, if needed, it will still be possible to change this behavior should you ever need to. This behavior is controlled by a dedicated radius attribute called charge report. I need an account to be billed according to a special rate such as VOICEONNET, rather than according to the actual number dialed. Is this possible? Yes. This can be done using a dedicated radius attribute called PortaBilling rate pattern. It's basically a string used by PortaBilling to match the corresponding rate calls of destination instead of the called station ID or CLD during the authorization of an account. So all you need to do is add a transformation rule to your custom xDR Mediator code that will use the format that you see on your screen. Is there a way to recalculate an imported CDR? Of course, mistakes can happen. Perhaps someone sends you the wrong price list, or your administrator simply clicks the wrong button, resulting in incorrect charges in the database. So how can this be corrected before you get a call from an angry customer? If it's a misconfiguration and the system failed to import some specific CDR, then the flow will be the same as I described a bit earlier in this video. Your administrator finds the failed CDRs using the PortaSwitch web interface, checks to see what's wrong, for example maybe there is no rate marked in the appropriate tariff, then fixes the issue and reprocesses the CDR. Reprocessing can also be done directly from the web interface. If it's a more complicated case and the CDRs were successfully imported but using wrong prices, then PortaBilling provides two methods for fixing such cases. That's xDR re-rating and radius refeed. If you are a PortaSwitch user, it's important to remember that these two highly useful methods are both available to you. You can find more information about both of them using the link in the video description. Where can I find a list of all radius attributes that can be used while creating custom transformation logic for the xDR Mediator? And are there any mandatory attributes? Well, for this final question, I can answer it very simply with a link to a nicely structured table of all those radius attributes, along with a link to information about all of the mandatory attributes as well. Both links can be found in the description to this video. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope you found the answer to these frequently asked questions about the PortaOne xDR Mediator utility helpful. If you have any questions about the xDR Mediator that I did not answer here, or if you plan on launching the CDR import soon and you would like to know about the different ways that PortaOne can assist you, please reach out to us using the contact details you can find in the description of this video. In my final video in this series, I will walk you through a complete xDR Mediator configuration in real time. I look forward to see you there.